Kevin Rudd's prior critiques of Donald Trump have piqued the interest of some in the U.S. president-elect's inner circle, sparking renewed speculation over whether the incoming administration may pursue retaliation. This week, Dan Scavino, a top aide to Trump, published Rudd's welcome statement to the president-elect on social media, along by an hourglass gif. This move has revived speculation that the incoming president will prefer another Australian representative in Washington when he takes office in January. Welcome to the channel. Please, if you're new here, like and subscribe so you don't miss new updates and hot gists. Rudd described Trump as the village idiot and not a leading intellectual force in a 2021 interview. According to a new video released earlier this week, Rudd erased old social media tweets critical of Trump last week, following the U.S. election. The former Prime Minister is Australia's most visible representative in one of its most crucial diplomatic roles. His status underscores the gap between career diplomats and political appointees, as well as the procedures for moving them abroad and back home. While some Australian opponents want Rudd replaced, others, notably his predecessor and former Liberal Senator Arthur Sinodinos, caution that kowtowing would be a bad idea. The Albanese government continues to support Rudd as the finest candidate to serve as Australia's ambassador to Washington, D.C. But could Trump do anything to oust him? The Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations, established in 1961, governs diplomatic appointments. When a country nominates a new ambassador, the advance clearance process includes a démarche, a written request from one government to another that permits the destination country to express any substantial objections. The convention permits the host to reject a nominee, but this is typically a normal approval process. Once accepted and dispatched, the appointee officially submits credentials to the host country's leader upon arrival, generally in person. That permission transcends a change in host nation administration. Article 9 of the treaty allows the host nation's leader to proclaim a country's chief of mission or any other member of its diplomatic staff persona non grata, compelling that person to resign with no reason. The home country is then expected to recall its diplomats or cease their formal duties at the mission. In the United States, the expulsion precedent extends back even further, to 1793, when France's first ambassador, Edmund Charles Genet, drew President George Washington's ire for urging American privateers to join the French Revolution, violating Washington's neutrality. It would be a major diplomatic incident if Trump declared Rudd persona non grata under the Vienna Convention. Lower-level diplomatic workers are more frequently expelled from nations with whom the United States has issues, such as those accused of being undeclared intelligence operatives. However, formally invoking Article 9 against the head of mission of a friendly country would be an exceptional step. Donald Rothwell, an international law professor at Australian National University, doubts Trump would take such a step. I just cannot perceive that the Vienna Convention would be relied upon in the case of an Australian ambassador, according to Rothwell. As things stand at the moment, it would cause a very significant rift in diplomatic relations. However, he thinks the Australian government may be put in a position of saying we really need to replace this ambassador to ensure there is a good relationship and the AUKUS nuclear submarine contract succeeds. Rothwell believes that any official persona non grata designation would be catastrophic to the submarine pact. If the Vienna Convention trigger was pulled and the Australian ambassador was declared persona non grata in the midst of AUKUS treaty, still winding its way through the parliamentary processes in this country, it's doubtful whether AUKUS would survive. If Trump decides he wants a different Australian ambassador, he does not have to resort to the convention. Instead of going through the formal expulsion procedure, which would have serious consequences for the two nations' relations, he could inform the administration and Capitol Hill that his government's agencies would not be dealing with Rudd. Even less formally, if he just restated his discontent with Rudd's perceived attitude toward him, as he did before the election, his supporters may see this as a cue to make access more difficult, making Rudd's situation extremely difficult. Trump has already pushed another Five Eyes Allies ambassador to resign for personal complaints. However, they were made as current assessments at the time rather than historical reflections, as Rudd's were. In late 2019, during the first Trump administration, Britain's ambassador Kim Darroch was compelled to retire after cables he wrote back to London were released. The cables featured honest judgments of Trump as insecure and, incompetent, and branded his government as diplomatically clumsy, inept, and dysfunctional, predicting that it would crash and burn. I don't know the ambassador, but he's not well known in the US. We will no longer deal with him, Trump tweeted on the social media platform X, formerly Twitter, in July 2019. Dara quit a month later, saying it had become impossible for him to do his duties. On his return, the then British Prime Minister, Theresa May, appointed him to the House of Lords as a Life Lord.